Yo, so what's good, Spirit Squad? Today, what we're doing is honestly, we're being absolute mad lads. It's Eternal Weekend, we're celebrating life, everything is good, and we have the world's most expensive spirit list, which really just means that we're playing, spirits in Vintage. But check this out, it's actually pretty sweet as far as tools that we have to help combat what the Vintage metagame looks like. So, for those who are unfamiliar, the Vintage metagame is full of relatively powerful, but ultimately balanced within the terms of the format decks. So, there's a few very good graveyard decks that are focused around cards like Hollow One and Hogak. There are a few creature-based decks that include like a humans deck that's actually playing the new Rick Steadfast Leader card, so that's kind of cool. But there's also other creature decks too, like we'll see like mono green decks that have things like Elvish Reclaimer and Primeval Titan, technically creature decks. We have like a Sultai Midrange deck that's playing Deathrite Shamans, Tarmogoyfs, Leovolds, things like that. And now we're introducing spirits. There's also going to be a bunch of very good control decks. And those include like what are called Xerox decks that just want to do the same thing with their great red and blue cards every game. There's also good combo decks like Mishra's Workshop artifact based decks. There's Paradoxical Outcome, which is just like the true play a million cards in a turn combo deck. And honestly, we've got some relatively good tools against all of those things. So what we got here, we have 4 Cavern of Souls, and we're playing all 4 because Vintage is a very Force of Will format. So we want to make sure that our cards, while a little underpowered, all resolve. So, 4 Caverns. We've also got a Caracas, and this is going to be good at 2 things. First, it's going to save our good cards, so like Thalia and Lavinia are both legendaries, and we can bounce those back to our own hand if our opponent, say, points a removal spell at them. Or, of course, we can get our opponent's things off the table, i.e. Hogak. We have Strip Mine, we have 4 Wastelands, and these are also going to be pretty good, especially when like we're doing Thalia things. And here are the creatures that we're actually playing. So we're playing 4 copies of Containment Priest, and these guys are very, very good against the graveyard decks, because like cards like Vengevine, cards like Bloodghast, those can't get themselves out of the graveyard if Containment Priest is in play. So we are going to be very excited to see things like that. Also, against Oath of Druids, if the card comes out of the library, then they won't be able to do anything because we have a Containment Priest in play. So that's really sick to have 4 of in the main. And we're not playing Aether Vial. So, again, different format. So we're not trying to combat our own Containment Priest either, since we're not playing Vial, we're not playing Collected Company, we don't fight ourselves. We're playing all 4 Thalias, because Thalia is nuts in this format. Like, you think she's good in Modern? She is insane here. And 4 copies of Ghostly Pilferer. Now, this guy is actually kind of sweet. So, Vintage is a lot slower of a format than people give it credit for. Not everything is, oh, I'm going to throw out my big Hadouken wave and beat you on turn 1. That's not really what this format's about. And the second line of text here is really what Ghostly Pilferer is for. So whenever an opponent casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, we get to draw a card. So that means the graveyard. So if like our opponent casts a Hogak from the graveyard, draw a card. If they cast a Gravecrawler, draw a card. If they are on the Mishra's Workshop deck and they have like Mystic Forge, casting spells from the top of their deck, draw a card. If they have Bolas' Citadel in play and they're casting cards from the top of their deck, draw a card. Every single time. This card is super dope. It does have a little bit of a non-bow with the next card we're about to introduce, but when you have one or the other on the table, they're both very good. The other card is Spirited Labyrinth. Each player can't draw more than 1 card each turn. Now, that little line of text right there is most of why Narset is restricted to 1. And we just get to play an on-tribe, uncounterable most of the time because of Cavern of Souls, 3 of them in our deck. That just is a thing that we can pack, and we don't have to sacrifice anything to do it. We can just play them. So this does directly compete with Ghostly Pilferer, and it does compete with our 1 Ancestral Recall. But This effect is so powerful that we really can't ignore it here. It's very strong. So like if our opponent tries to Ancestral Recall, sucks to be them. If they try to cast Paradoxical Outcome, it does nothing. And even if they try to activate like a Bazaar of Baghdad, granted they do want cards in their graveyard, but they don't get to draw off of the Bazaar. So it's a lot easier for them to run out of gas to try to kill us with. Very good effect. We do have 2 Rattle Chains, and that serves 2 purposes. First, we do want to protect our own cards against things like Abrupt Decay, Swords to Plowshares, Lightning Bolt, and whatever other removal spells our opponents are playing, because this format does have a few removal spells. And of course, we want to enable a lot of our spirits to be played at instant speed. So if, for example, we have a Rattle Chains, our opponent casts like a Brainstorm, then we get to respond with a Spirited Labyrinth, and Brainstorm resolves, right? So they don't get to draw the 3 cards from Brainstorm because, well, Spirited Labyrinth just says you don't get to draw cards. But the card's still resolved, so they still have to put 2 cards back. Sucks to be them. Like instant speed Skyclave Apparitions can get rid of things like Vengevine and humans off of the table. And it's just a really, really, really sweet effect. And then the other highlight card that we have here is Lavinia, Azorius Renegade. Vintage players everywhere will definitely know this card. She's insane. So each opponent can't cast non-creature spells with converted mana cost greater to the number of lands that person has. So like, if they only have like 1 land in play, they just can't cast Force of Will, so they can never counter most of your things, because Force of Will is the premier counter spell of the format. And also, if an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell automatically. So that's going to be great for things like them casting Hogak, them casting their Moxen or their Black Lotus. Anything that like costs 0 literal mana to tap for is automatically countered. One thing that we do need to take note of, though, is that Lavinia does cause a direct fight with Thalia. So like, if we have a Thalia on the table, they pay 1 so that they can cast their Mox Sapphire, then it no longer gets countered by Lavinia, so we kind of got to keep track of that, but honestly, like, both of these effects are so strong that we really want to be able to play both anyway. They're just that good. And then Skyclave Apparition, it does Skyclave things, it's very good. It might even be better here than it is in Modern, because most of the things that you want to remove are probably 0 or 1 mana, or if we're killing off like a Narset or a Teferi, they can't just like re-up another one, because those decks can't afford to play a bunch of Planeswalkers. Spell Queller's nuts, and we're playing 1 Palace Jailer, because creature decks are still pretty good. And a lot of the creatures, because we're not playing any Supreme Phantoms or Drog Skulls, most of the other creatures in the format will hit harder than ours, so we need to just be aware of that. But other than that, our cards, we're playing fantastic power cards because we can. We're playing Ancestral, Time Walk, a Sapphire for blue, a Pearl for white, and we're playing a Black Lotus. So our 2-color ultra fair deck still gets to play 5 of the Power 9. Pretty hype. And then, as usual, our sideboard is where some very fun stuff lives. We got 3 Grafdigger's Cage and a Surgical Extraction. This is going to be really good, again, against those graveyard decks. And Grafdigger's Cages are also especially good against Oath of Druids. Complement these Grafdigger's Cages with our Containment Priest, the Surgical, and Lavinia. And Hogak actually has a pretty hard time of doing anything to us. Flusterstorm is just going to be good for miscellaneous spell decks. Most of them are going to be named Paradoxical Outcome, but it's good against other things too. A Swords to Plowshares and 2 additional Path to Exiles on top of those swords that's going to be our help against like the humans decks, against the workshop decks, anything that plays creatures that are just going to be bigger than ours. Deafening Silence is just good against any deck playing like a barrage of spells at us. So we only really need 1 because we have so many cards that are very good against spells, but it is good to have this type of effect. A Balance, this is going to be really good to help against a lot of the creature-based decks again, just because we do sometimes need like an emergency Wrath of God effect, and Wrath of God in this format costs 2 because it's named Balance, so it's pretty silly. 2 copies of Kataki's War's Wage. So this card's also nuts because like making our workshop opponents pay mana for each of their artifacts in play every upkeep is very, very good for us, especially if they're depending on like their Mishra's workshop to be their primary mana source. Because workshops only use mana when they count towards casting spells. They don't get to count towards upkeep costs. So, like, in an example where, say, I don't know, we're on the play, we do something turn one, whatever. They play a workshop, they play a couple of really good cards, we untap and play Kataki. They don't have mana for their artifacts now. So Kataki against that deck is sometimes just a straight up one-sided Wrath of God every turn, and it's great for just us. Also, it's uncounterable because Cavernous Souls, and it's a spirit. And then the other two cards are just force negations because additional force effects are very good. But now that we know what we're doing and how, we're going to go ahead, jump right into the format, and see if this is a successful Eternal Weekend. Alright, so we're jamming round one. We're on Vintage Spirits. We do lose a die roll, but that's not great. I think we keep this just because we don't really feel like trying to mulligan further. But that basic plane helps out a lot. So we are a little sad about that, obviously, but like, oh, now we're really sad. So they are down to only one card in hand, though. So if they don't really have too much as far as business is concerned, and we start drawing lands, then, like that, we're actually in a pretty decent spot, all things considered. So everything is currently castable in our hand with these two lands. So while we are definitely complaining about the scenario here, it's not the worst. Like, we have the ability to play a lot of Magic here. Like, a Goyf is annoying, but okay. Like, that sucks, but we are definitely going to offer... There we go. One of our two creatures for this Tarmogoyf here. And since their only creatures are 1/2s now, like, this is actually a pretty good trade for us. So we want all of those things off the table. We have a Containment Priest, so now we can just, like, go into aggro mode, and reducing this game to just being creature fight A versus B here, this is a pretty good look for us. Like, sure, that's annoying, but okay. And now it's no longer annoying. Look at us go. So we've got an uncounterable Skyclave Apparition coming in, and they're going to pack it up here. So yeah, let's go ahead and shoot into round, or game 2. Alright, so we are playing against the Sultai Midrange deck, and this hand's pretty good. It's got the Ancestral in it, so certainly not really too much room to complain. Whoa, okay, that's bad. Yeah, so, I mean, to be fair, we could have simply chosen to, like, let the Tarmogoyf happen in a hand that contained a Skyclave Apparition, so honestly, that was probably more on us than anything else, but I don't know, they were, like, low on threats there, so I don't think it was that bad of a decision to counter the Goyf, but in retrospect, it was... Yeah, like, we didn't have to counter the Tarmogoyf. We could have just let this Skyclave Apparition deal with that instead of dealing with an Oko here. So we at least are still going to get to clear the Oko, but we do need to be a little careful about our life total. We're at 12. And hilariously enough, like, a 3/3 by itself is actually, like, kind of hard to clear out without a Swords to Plowshares or another Skyclave. Well, actually, we can't even do a Skyclave. It's a token. Is it still a token? I'm pretty sure it still counts as a token. So the only really upside here is that they don't have a black source for this. So, like, we're not just going to start, like, infinitely losing to it. But, like, this is a pretty sad face double block to get the food off the table. Okay. Okay, so we did get a sword, so that's pretty nice. This being not a white source kind of sucks a little bit for... Okay, so they at least don't get the trophy off. So we do still have attackers to play with here. And okay, so we no longer have a Mock Sapphire. So that kind of sucks. Yeah, I don't know if I'd... Yeesh. Alright, so we do have all four Thalias in hand now, so that sucks a lot. Um, but at least here we can play like a blocker. No, we can't. Okay. So now we're just dead to attacks on the way back, so that sucks a lot. They had exactly force plus blue card, and, well, sucks to suck. So let's go over to game 3. I'm actually a little surprised at how much of a game that was after they got that really good, like, here's a Goyf, here's an Oko in the same turn. Ooh. Ooh, this is nice. Look at this. Oh my god, look at this. Like a turn 2 Queller after getting to Ancestral with force backup if we need to. Oh my god, look at us go. That's gross. I love everything about this. Um, and we even got the Lotus. Granted, we don't have another creature or anything that we want to do with Lotus right now, but like it's still just good that it's there. And here we can just like... Yeah. So now we've got like Force of Will to protect it as well. Life is great. And okay. Annoying, but happens. We have a sword for it. So let's do that. And here, yeah. So we are going to hold back that land um, because we don't know what we're going to draw as far as creature types. So, like, if we draw, for example, a Palace Jailer, we want the Cavern of Souls to name Human. If we draw another good spirit like Spell Queller, we want this to name Spirit. So, there's really no reason for us to just, like, jam that Cavern of Souls out there. And honestly, Sylvan Library is... It's good and it's counterable, but we didn't really need to counter it there, so we, well, didn't. Oof, okay. Oh, that's not good. Okay, so I think that's a shame concede. Because, like, this Mox Jet just, yeah, it gets countered by Lavinia automatically. So they're going to go ahead and pack that up. And look at us. That's 1-1. All right, so we got round 2. We are coming off of a fresh W, so that's pretty sweet. And our hand here is, honestly, it's only medium bad. This isn't just the worst. Okay, maybe now it is. Ravager sucks. Okay. And honestly, I don't know why we. Oh well, never mind. It looks better now. I was gonna say I don't really know why we felt like we needed to counter it in response to the Mox Ruby. Oh, okay. So I guess our opponent just like has no idea what to expect from us. So they're just like, in case we're Xerox, they're naming Dak Faden, which to be fair is a fine play. Trinisphere, annoying. Not the end of the world. We do need another land. We don't get it, so like we're sad, but we're only medium sad. Okay, so not the land we needed, so we are sad about that part of things, but okay. Hey, so we got the land, so we are honestly we are relatively happy about that. And we are going to take our lovely opportunity to spell queller this Foundry Inspector. So that's pretty nice. Okay, so thanks to their Ancient Tomb, we are still technically winning the race of attacking here. So what we want to do here is get this Lord off the table, and then take that Foundry Inspector down to just being a 3/2. So like that Lodestone Golem isn't even all that annoying anymore here because like our spells already cost 3, so like we don't care. And here we can just keep the table clear, and as long as they keep trying to play cards, um, our Spell Queller has the potential to just like be a lot better than everything else that's happening here. So the fact that they have a 5/3 isn't even all that bad. So they're going to go to 1, and all we have to do is not die this turn. So, well, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to play Spell Queller, block the Lodestone Golem, and then attack them for 1 in the air. And, well, despite their pretty good opener, we managed to get game 1. So let's jump into round 2 here. So Shops is a little difficult, but we do have 2 copies of Kataki in our board. So I don't necessarily know that we want to like hard... Ew. Okay. So that's ugly. Okay. Ah, yes. We never didn't have it. So that part's pretty nice. So now let's see what happens. A Revoker, okay. They're going to name Lotus. Sure. Well, that's obnoxious. Alright, so here we definitely like need another land, otherwise we're just like not really going to participate too much. Okay, so Swords of Plowshare is also pretty nice. Not what we wanted, but still pretty nice. Okay, so we do Swords 1 of the factories, we go down to 10, so all things considered, this isn't the end of the world yet by any means, and we're actually still, like, fighting here, so this isn't... They have a crap ton of mana, but they are down to only 1 card, so if we, like, either draw a land or start drawing creatures, then this is still fine. So we do draw the land, so that's pretty nice. And now we can like play this Skyclave Apparition. So just getting that last creature off the table. Well, that sucked. But like, oh god. Okay, so yeah, so we died to the haste creature here. So that Spatial Contortion was like relatively ugly, but honestly, that game was still slightly winnable had we drawn a land earlier. So I'm not super sad about how that went. So we are going to go into game 3. So here's this, and we're going to be on the play. Not with that, but this is okay. Oh, I know what I did this game. Okay. Scary. So that, I need to pause that. So that was just a super screw up. What I wanted to do was force pitching Time Walk, not force pitching Force, so that I had both, you know, like this Time Walk out of my hand, because what was I ever going to do with it with a Wasteland and a Cavern of Souls, and a potential second Force up in case of something like their Lodestone Golem or anything like that, which it turns out they have. So we definitely messed that one up. Like, top decking versus them not having a Lodestone Golem should definitely have been where we tried to be in life. And granted, they still would have had Ravager plus Ballista, so like, we were still going to be relatively dead here, but at least we should have played it correctly and at least tried for it. But good stuff to our opponent, and that's going to be 1-1 after 2 rounds. Alright, so we got round 3. We do win a die roll, so that's not bad. This hand is not bad. It's got our misstep in hand, so we'll accept it. So let's see what they start off with. Oh, okay. So, and they do have a Flusterstorm, so that's actually pretty scary. So they're going to have a crap ton of mana, and they're probably going to get to cast an Outcome this turn. So let's see what happens. They do get to cast an Outcome right now. So, oh, a Tinker, even worse. Oh, God. Lots of stuff is happening. So there's an Outcome for a bunch. Here's some spells, and yeah, they get to have 7 cards in hand again. So we do get to cast a Pilferer, which is pretty sweet because whenever they cast Bolas' Citadel spells, they get to draw a card for each one. But okay, we're just nope, not even dealing with it. So like the Mentor and Pyroblast though is definitely just gonna seal the deal, because I mean they got to cast Outcome twice. They have everything they need, including their win condition and removal for our one piece of counterplay here. We didn't have the land to kill this. There is no reason to keep that game going. So we're going to go ahead and right on to game 2 here. Man, that was pretty good. So this is fine though. So we do only want to side in like one Grafdigger's Cage against this deck most of the time because like we have so many spell-based things to help deal with their stuff. But we find it, so that does stop them from doing things with specifically Bolas' Citadel. But like the rest of what we got going on is certainly not bad. Like next turn we can cast a Skyclave Apparition for this Soul Ring. Did I just... I did. Whoops. So what I wanted to do there, or rather what I should have done there, is put one Cavern on Spirits and one on Humans since this was already on white. That would have unlocked me to be able to cast everything and have it be uncounterable rather than just like doubling up into a useless Spirit Cavern for the second one. So whoops. But we do get to cut them off on mana. We've got a Force, and a little sad that we didn't play Spirited Labyrinth if that's what they're going to be doing. So they are going to get to draw their cards. But, boo. So we do have the Spirit in case they, like, draw a PO and they can't, like, do any of these shenanigans with top. Or at least too many of them. But this isn't bad. So we got just, like, a nice little barrage of uncounterable spirits. And as long as they aren't able to remove these spirits, they don't really get to, like, do their deck's function too much. So this is just going to be a really hard situation for them to get out of. Okay. Oh, okay. So this is where they go ahead and pack it up too. So let's go ahead and move on to game 3. All right. So we got game 3 against Jeskai PO. That sucks. That does not. Oh man. So this is actually kind of nice. Yeah, this is pretty nice. So let's see what they have here. Okay, so they do start off with like a fresh nothing, so that's not bad. And specifically that being a blue land helps a lot too. So they do force a will that, but we still have a leftover Kataki, so they don't really get a chance to develop their fast mana here. And we draw our Grafdigger's Cage again too, so that's really nice. Okay. And here, we don't really need to like press too many buttons or anything, so we'll just do that. And then end of turn, we'll put in Rattle Chain since we don't need it as a blue card anymore. So here we just got a nice little clock going. They can't develop fast mana because of Kataki. And here, they're just going to catch some creature-related L's here. So on this very last turn, I probably should have played out the Grafdigger's Cage, just to prevent any like Lotus plus Yogg's Will shenanigans. But it was still pretty sweet to just see that Kataki probably stranded some fast mana in their hand for like the entire game, and our own Ancestral Recall obviously looked really good there, as Ancestral does, but just developing a clock and having a plan, and yeah, looks like we got there. Yo, so we got round 4. We do win a die roll, that's pretty sweet. And this hand, while a little slow, it's not that bad. Like, it's got our misstep, it's got 2 strip mine effects, and it's got some creatures. This is probably fine. So let's see what they open up with. Okay, so they're going to waste our wasteland. We cry, it sucks, etc. Alright. Okay, no nice things for anybody. Okay. Maybe nice things for our opponent. But let's go ahead and try to brainstorm and make it so that they don't have nice things. Oh boy. That's a lot. That's a lot going on there. So we do finally get our second land, but yeah, they've already gotten some stuff going on here, so we're not like full scared, but at least a little scared of what's happening here. That's not bad. So now we have Containment Priest plus Swords, we have Spell Queller. All things considered, this is probably fine. So here we're just going to go ahead, Spell Queller the second Tarmogoyf, and now we get to untap with a creature and a Swords to Plowshare with no cards in our hand. So for what it's worth, this is actually a pretty decent look for us. So we probably should get to actually like solving some of these problems though. Getting this many lands in one hand, though, is not exactly where we want it to be in life, but maybe Ghostly Pilfer will eventually start, like, letting us play the game. But we do need to be careful about these double death rights, too. Because, like, they're working pretty hard on the life total here. So, we're actually kind of lucky that they don't play a Bayou, because, like, this is still, like, pretty uncomfortable. Oof. Yeah, this is, we're dead, so that's a little bit of a sad face, but it's kind of what it is. Yeah, they just have, like, way better mana than us that game, thanks to their Lotus, and that really, really kicked the crap out of us. So let's move over to game 2 and then see if we fare any better. Alright, so we got game 2 here. We're up against Sultai again, and this hand is a lot faster and a little better. So if we can make it to 4 mana, this Palace Jailer is going to look really absurd. But for now, we'll take a Ghostly Pilferer. Okay, so Deathrite, annoying, not the end of the world. Oh, why don't we Wasteland there? Oh, I don't like that choice. Yeah, we kind of deserve that, to be honest. And... yeah, what? I don't think I like my line there. I think we should have just, like, played for eventually getting access to this Palace Jailer, because now we have a bunch of hot nothing going on, and unfortunately for us, we kind of deserve it. So let's see what continues to happen here. We'll take our 4, we'll cry about it. Yeah, I don't like this line at all. Because, like, we could be doing things like playing, we could have, like, played Rattle Chains, and then just, like, held up Spirited Labyrinth, maybe in response to something. We could get a 4th land in Tarm Arm. Okay, that's not bad. But we need to be really careful about our life total, too, because we... oh, no. Lotus again. Okay. And yeah, and that's where we just went ahead and realized that we kind of fought the wrong fight. Like, Narset was a bait spell, and to be honest, we fell for it. We're an idiot. So we should have just, like, let Narset slide, and then, like, crossed our fingers on this path to exile, getting rid of this Tarmogoyf, because that's really the only way we were ever going to be able to play this game. And I feel like we did value their mana more than our own mana when we needed our own mana. So that was not that good of a look, especially when they saw their Lotus, we didn't see ours. So they just got to power out their spells a lot faster in both games than we did ours. So that'll happen sometimes. Like, obviously, power is powerful for a reason. But I feel like we could have played both of those games, well, definitely this game and maybe the last one, a little better as far as the mana part of things is concerned, and that, I guess, is going to be a little bit of a lesson to take away. But we do take an L here, and we're a little sad about that, but to be honest, we got to learn something. So I am not the saddest about this loss, but it is definitely our loss to take. Like, we deserve it. Alright, so we got round 5 here, and we find out in this next turn that we actually are playing against our 3rd Sultai opponent out of 4 rounds. So that's a little bit of a tell as to what the format's doing. But we do have an uncountered Bathalia, so that part's pretty sweet. So we're going to go ahead, just attack, and now we've got the option of Containment Priest or Spell Queller, and both of those are obviously a pretty good look. So we decide to not do anything there, and we'll just let that slide until the end of the turn, so whatever. A Ponder? Okay, sure. Okay, so now we can go ahead and get rid of this Deathrite Shaman, and that's pretty nice. So we'll do that. And they get rid of our mana, but we currently have more mana than them, so okay, good. So they go ahead and pack it up because they can't really do much of anything because our Thalia is probably just really, really oppressive on them right now. And of course they don't know it, but we have a force to pitch this Ghostly Pilfer that we're otherwise not really going to use. So that's a pretty good look from us. And let's go ahead and slide over to game 2. So we got game 2 here. We're up against yet another Sultai opponent. And hand's fine. We have a turn 1 Thalia. Can't really ask for too much more most games. Oh, and she resolves. Nice. So now we've got just a crap ton of creature removal, so this is pretty dope. What happens here? A Thoughtseize? That's fine. So they do get rid of our only creature, which is a little sad-faced. Well, never mind. So we'll be able to go ahead and jam another creature. This one they can't force Castalia, so that's nice. Lotus is a little scary, though. Our opponents are very good at drawing Lotuses. Oh, that's bad. Okay, so... and unfortunately for our opponent, they do kind of tilt off in the chat, which is why I made sure to hide it. But Ancestral Recall is exactly why Spirited Labyrinth is in the deck. We'll notice that they still have 4 cards in hand. Yeah, that doesn't work, opponent. So, yeah. But this is going to be where I guess they see if they have the ability to do anything. And they don't. They do know that we can kill at least one, and probably, I don't remember whether they saw this or not. But they do know that we can kill a creature if they try to play like just a Tarmogoyf or anything like that. So that's going to be our game, and yeah. We have fought a lot of Sultai today, but we beat 2 of them, so let's move over to round 5. Or, that was round 5. Let's move over to round 6. There we go. Alright, so we got round 6 here, and... Ooh. This actually looks pretty decent. Yeah, that's really it. This looks pretty decent. So let's see what happens here. Crucible. Wait, what? Oh, duh, we have Skyclave. Never mind. So, yeah, like, this is still not the best look, but we do have the Force still. They can just, like... Okay, they didn't. I was gonna say they could have just gotten, like, rid of our, Why did we counter Sphere of Resistance, of all things? Okay, so we're putting on a lot of power here, but I don't know that we really fought the right fight there. Like, we should have just, like, let Sphere of Resistance slide, and we could have used the Force of Will on a bigger threat like Golos, because we had the mana to pay for the Sphere of Resistance, and most of their fast mana wasn't really doing anything, so I don't believe that we decided to, like, fight the right fight there. And Spell Queller against the 5-drop is just going to do no good. So I don't think, yeah, I think we kind of deserve this. Honestly, a little bit of a butt kicking that we're receiving right now. And we also don't even have any flyers to get over to Skolos. And now we're put into, like, the really sad face position of having to use a Wasteland on a Caracas, because that's what's going to let them rinse and reuse their Golos, rather than on a Tolarian Academy, which is just absolutely freaking terrifying, or an Inventor's Fair, which is, while not as terrifying as this, still really good. So this is just, like, honestly not a great look for us. And the fact that we drew almost all of, like, the non-flying creatures in the deck instead of the flying half of it is also not that great. But to be fair, this build just has more hate cards and not as many flyers as, like, the Modern or Pioneer version. So that'll just happen to us sometimes. And, oh my god. So, yeah, so Akarn is just going to get rid of us. We're not even going to, like, try to fight this fight anymore. So let's go ahead and slide over to game 2 and see if that at least looks a little better. Alright, so we got game 2. We're up against Shops, and let's see what we got going on here. This is fine. So we do have a turn 1 Thalia, which looks pretty decent. And then for the following turns, we have, like, creatures to deploy or Force of Will, so... can't really complain too much for a starting hand. Like, they can just overpower us by playing a Workshop, like that. Oh, Mylanta, okay. So let's see if they want to trade. They don't. And they... Oh, Also, not that important this game, but they do win all the coin flips, so we're medium sad-faced about that. Oh. Okay. So they go ahead and attack us. So we do have the option of either Force or Spell Queller, which is nice. What are they casting? A Worm Coil Engine. Right. Yikes. So that's just absolutely terrifying. Now what? Oh, okay. So they must have been deciding whether to play a Crucible or not. Yeah. And I don't pick up on the fact that they're playing a Crucible, which them like deciding whether to tap 4 mana last turn told me that they were playing a Crucible, and then I just like didn't pick up on it, so I just tried to like kill their Mishra's Workshop when that was like. Granted, our draws are just not going to be able to contend with what they're doing right now anyway, but like that's something that we should have known about. So we could have at least given ourselves the chance to keep more mana in play. And yeah, we just kind of like didn't there. So we're going to go ahead and get ourselves wastelanded out of this game. And while that was always going to happen in this specific scenario, we could have at least played it a little better, or at least played it to the point where like maybe over the course of a few extra turns that we have because of potential draws, their mana crypt is what kills them. Granted, they did win all of the flips for their mana crypt, so like that's our opponent's also just pretty lucky on top of us. I'm not gonna say mismanaging mana in this game, but like we, I guess, could have played it a little better since we effectively knew they had Crucible, and that didn't end up costing us because we drew so poorly, but it had the potential to cost us. So we do lose that round. And all things considered, though, even though we lost to Shops twice, I still don't feel like that is a particularly terrible matchup. Like that could be solved by putting in just honestly like a few more flyers into the deck so that we can attack over things like Golos and these Phyrexian Revokers and whatnot. So I think we might be revisiting this deck to like take out some of like the Ghostly Pilferers, which were not as good as expected, which kind of sucks. But we also didn't like play against an Midrange, so whatever. We could play things like the just like the Supreme Phantom and more flyers to complement the rest of the deck. And what I think I would do in the future, if we were to play this again, would be something more like this. So here we'll see that we do still have a lot of the Thalia, Spirited Labyrinth stuff happening here, but we'll notice that we put in both Vials, which were sorely missed in this build. Like I really, really, really wanted Vial in a lot of spots there because we just got ourselves wastelanded / strip mined out of quite a few games where Vial would have just made those games infinitely easier. Like against a lot of the Assassin's Trophy and Wasteland decks, a Resolved Vial, like how in the world are they ever beating that? And I think the answer is they don't. So what I would do in the future here would be to put in Supreme Phantoms so that we can continue attacking with our things, put in one more Rattle Chains, since we're able to play more off of the Vial here. And we don't want to mess around with any 1-drops like Mausoleum Wanderer, just because the only deck that really wants to resolve sorceries and instants that badly anyway is Paradoxical Outcome. And they have so much fast mana that even a Mausoleum Wanderer just is not reliable enough to be a counterspell here. So in the event that they draw even like, I don't know, a simple Mana Vault, we are never going to be able to counter anything with Mausoleum Wanderer if they just so much as see one of those, or even like a Soul Ring. So I don't think it's going to be good in this format. But we still want to have Thalia, although not 4. I think I'm going to go down to 3 and then 2 copies of Lavinia. 2 Containment Priests in the main with another in the board. Feels like that's probably going to be a little better. 3 Spirited Labyrinth still. I think this card's still gas. And we don't really want to try playing Time Walk because honestly, like even when we did see it, it was just nowhere near good enough. And a lot of our cards are spent trying to fight over our opponent's cards, as well as, just being creatures that we want to be on the table, and we want like a creature density to be good. So I don't believe that we really want to be trying to time walk, because we just won't have that many opportunities to make it good. Whereas last time I tried to put it in, and it felt like it was a thing that would have been powerful enough, but it turns out it just wasn't. Misstep is still very good though. I think 3 Swords to Plowshares, the fourth one in a board with 2 Path to Exiles. I think that's still like the place to be as far as removing creatures for the Sultai and humans matchups, but I also wanted a 4th Skyclave Apparition in this sideboard here for those purposes. Especially since all of those things also happen to hit like a lot of the workshop targets too. So we've got the 2 Katakis, we've got the 2 Force Negations over here, Containment Priest, Flusterstorm, Surgicals, plus 3 Grafdigger's Cage. All of the... I think this actually pretty neatly covers most of the format's bases, so I actually really, really like this sideboard. Spell Quellers, we are putting on Akira. I did not put Akira in the last build, just because first we wanted to try playing a Palace Jailer, which it turns out 4 mana was just relatively unrealistic, but also another blue card. And from the Sultai decks that we saw, the Premier Removal spell actually seems to be like Fatal Push slash what's that other card called? Assassin's Trophy. And little to no Abrupt Decay. And Abrupt Decay is what originally turned me off of Kira, because I did see that Sultai was like the best deck in the vintage format, or rather the most commonly played, rather. I don't know about best deck. I think that one goes to Paradoxical Outcome. But a lot of those decks just are not playing any Abrupt Decays. So Kira is just going to do some very solid work, I believe. But we'll also notice now that we got the Supreme Phantoms, Rattlechain, Spellqueller, Kira. So we have a lot more flyers here than we did in the first iteration of this deck. And I think that's going to help us with attacking over Tarmogoyfs, attacking over Workshops creatures, and attacking over humans a lot more than the previous iteration of our deck did. And we'll notice now that we have, 3 Skyclaves, 3 Swords to Plowshares, so 6 main deck ways to get opposing creatures off the table. And that seems to be what gave us a lot of problems the first go around too, because like Deathrite Shaman is still nuts. So any of y'all who play Legacy will notice just how, or rather will remember just how potent Deathrite Shaman is. And to our land base is staying the same. When we saw lands, I do like the number that we actually had, and might even end up going up from 19 to 20, but I think 19 is fine with 4 Aether Vials. So that'll probably stay where it is. I don't know. We'll try one more go round, I think. And I believe this is what I would do in the next version of this deck, just to see if this is something that... I think this is going to be a little bit of a more viable build. Like the Supreme Phantom specifically, I think I like a lot, because not only are we blocking things like Phyrexian Revokers, but when we're powering out cards just with the power of Aether Vial here, I think Supreme Phantom is just going to do some really solid work in making our Rattlechains and Spellquellers much more potent attackers than they could be otherwise. And even though we have enough blue cards to slow the format down for us, we do still need to put clocks on our opponents. And we'll notice that like a single Tarmogoyf has walled us a couple of times. So I don't think that playing, just the most non-flyers is where we want to be. So I think Supreme Phantom fixes that problem. But this has actually been a really, really fun event. And to be honest, if it wasn't like 8 o'clock in the morning when I decided to call it quits after 3 and 3, I think I actually would have played the other 3 rounds, just because I did have a blast playing this deck. So it was a lot of fun. I definitely want to play this in at least like a league or 2 in the future. And if you like it as well, just, give the video a like, and I will see y'all next time.